Is everybody having a good summer? Good summer, nice hot summer. All right, Kelly, hit the next slide and I'll just tear into this subject. I'm getting some mileage out of my son's college education. My son goes to CCS and he's in his last year. This is his company. The new cards are his. This is his design, and he's got quite a thing going already before he gets out of school. So I told my son, give me a flyer or an overhead and I'll post your little business. He's done quite well. Next, that wasn't in my thing. I find it, Christmas is kind of interesting because some people get jolly and some people get miserable. Do you think there's more people that are jolly or more people that are miserable? Miserable. So, it's funny to sit here in my 30-year practice amazed how many depressed children that they bring to me. 14, 15, 16. These were the best years of my life. I had the most fun I could possibly have. I squeezed in from 14 to 23. And I squeezed a tremendous amount of fun in a very short period of time. But to hear all these children come in and all these parents, I think this week 2 people were going to funerals for people who had ended their life. One was 26 and one was 51. It's becoming a common occurrence today. So I thought for Christmas, I'd want to talk about helping some of these folks out here lighten their load because they really are miserable. And it's kind of surprising. And I've had some of my son's friends, foreign friends, tell me, how come everybody's depressed in your country and you guys have all this stuff? They wanted to know that question. So the holidays, I think, will cover a topic along those lines. All right, next. Dr. Jeff, his lectures have been well received. That's September 28th, 7:30 to 9. It's here, he'll be on superfoods. You better be on superfoods because they just passed a super Congress yesterday. I hope. Now, most folks aren't really aware what's going on. I hope you're paying attention. They're stealing your little liberties one by one. And yesterday, they took a big jump yesterday. Look up the Super Congress, look up the Committee of 13. I would encourage all of you that have been sitting here watching the train roll by, you best take the Republicans and Democrats seriously because they're stealing your world right out from under you. And it's both parties. Yesterday was brutal. Next. Now, to watch the second half of that video that was playing has all the treatments. That's the first. It's an hour and 19 minutes long. You guys just saw them discuss. It's a very well done. If anybody that's seen it, I've had 2 people that saw it. David, was that outstanding? It's outstanding. Well worth watching. And it's the second half. You've got to YouTube the Cancer Report in parentheses full version. And I would encourage everybody out there to watch that to see what you're up against. Today, they raided a farm out in California that was selling. Anybody hear about that? It's like the Amish are being raided, the lemonade stands are being raided, the farmers are being raided. The airport's turned into kind of a joke. We got a lot of publicity out in Oak Park because that lady put a garden in her front. How many people are aware the lady put the garden in her front yard? Now, what made the feds back off that? What's the secret to what made the feds go away? They wanted to arrest her, 90 days in jail. What made them go away? Publicity, one. Number two, a number of her neighbors put a garden in their front yard. That's what made him crawl under a rock. So I want you to remember, there's power in the people. And they're trying to, that you don't understand that. But if you dig your heels in, what's your line in the sand? I'm going to cover that tonight. What is your line in the sand? Things are getting awful odd in this country, and I believe that they're going to keep taking your rights away until a line will be crossed that it's going to signify some nasty events, and I've seen nobody do it better than Walter Veit. I would encourage you to watch this online. It's free, and see how far they're going to go with the freedoms and see what that line might be that they're not going to be allowed to cross. Next. Anybody with cancer that thinks they want to look into this deeper, this is a great website. I believe most of his reports, he covers every kind of cancer. For $300, you get a report what treatments work best for your cancer. I mean, everything. Chemo, radiation, supplements, herbs, China, Brzezinski, Gonzalez. It's a great website to have, cancerdecisions.org. It's well respected, and I would encourage anybody on this kind of a journey to at least investigate this website before they make decisions, and it'll be well worth your time. How many people saw, since the last lecture, that farmers' E. coli, that germ was going all over Europe? Said there's a nasty super bug going all over Europe. How many people saw that? Because things today come up like the Japanese thing, that's already gone. And things come and go quickly. They get the fear thing started. And they said that this E. coli strain was resistant to 9 antibiotics. How many people heard that on the news? It's resistant, okay? And it went in, people are watching this, and this went in one ear, and it exited the other ear. Then we're back to the Schwarzenegger divorce, and Charlie Sheen came back onto the picture, and those important things started to filter back into our life. The only way this E. coli was resistant to 9 antibiotics, I'm going to explain to you what just happened. If you took some E. coli, which is a nice name for an intestinal germ, and put, let's just use tetracycline, I listed them all right there, tetracycline, it would kill the whole dish except that corner. There's a little piece that would be left behind. Take it out, put it in another dish, do penicillin. It's going to kill the whole dish but that corner. Move it into streptomycin, whichever on the wall, and you do this 9 times. The only way that that thing could be resistant to 9 different antibiotics was if it was man-made. The farmers in Europe, this was one of those strange little, should I say, government things that wanted to put the small farmers out of business. Your foods, control the food, you're going to control the people. And the amount of things that this started in Europe, it's going to knock all the little guys out with this little strange attack that went right in front of everybody. And it's completely impossible for that strain to be resistant to 9 different antibiotics. Very strange, right in front of everybody. But people are trying to figure out what just happened. That was a man-made bacteria. Next. How many people saw that motocross rider that died It was on ESPN. It was on the news. Anybody catch this motocross rider that died from the heat? His name's Josh Lichtel. He's been at my house. He's one of my son's friends. My son's back there, and my son drove out there with him, and this was out about 3 hours from Michigan, out towards the side of the state. It's a place called Redbud. I don't know how they came up with the name Redbud. Only the 50-year-olds know. And he croaked on the last lap of that race from heat stroke. Now, there's some big names he was racing against. Let's see if I get this thing here. I don't follow this as close as my son. Ryan Villopoto, that's a big name. Tommy Hann, he died in the last lap of a 30-minute race. He stood up, collapsed, stood up. My family went to his funeral. They put him in the ambulance. His temperature was 107 degrees in the ambulance. And when my family went to the funeral, it looked like they put him in the casket with a shoehorn. He was all bloated and swollen. It was a strange thing. So it was an emergency situation. I wasn't there. Everybody did the right thing. It was a bona fide emergency. But they filled him up with so many fluids. In the casket, his fingers and his face was swollen. And every time they tried to disconnect him, his kidneys failed and his lungs filled up with fluid. I'm inclined, a speculation, that somebody did not know how to play this where they did this, because his appearance in the casket, he was way too full of fluid. My wife has my son have everything in the car for these kids. I'll show you. And it's today, I find it amazing in these hot days. I played outside in these hot days. I had 2 slurps from a garden hose, and I played all day. Today, everybody carries water everywhere they go. People can't walk down the street without a gallon of water by their side. And I'm just amazed what happened to everybody's hydration. It's been ruined. And every year I have a ton of people having trouble with the heat. That if they could have taken that kid, in the literature, it's on the wall, I put it up on the wall, if they'd have taken a young coconut and punched a hole in a coconut and gave him straight in an IV, it probably would have saved his life. There's 2 cases of coconut water in Dylan's truck. The Celtic salt he has in the truck. Next. Takes that, puts a teaspoon of that in water and drinks it. There's 84 mineral elements in the salt, number 1. How many people out there can't tolerate the heat? I'm going to give you a secret. Let's give you a secret. The people in my office, I've had one of the Detroit Lions in the middle of February. It was 0 out, and he sopped up my entire table, and it was 0. And I said, "You've lost your salt again." He said, I said, "Are you working out?" He's retired now. I said, "Are you still working out with the team?" He said, "Yes." And I've never seen somebody so sweaty in February. Now, when you're sweating for no reason, you've lost your salt. I've treated pro teams, and I've watched 13 of 30 guys sitting in an air-conditioned room drenched in sweat in front of me. I had to explain this to the doctors on a pro team because they didn't understand it. It's not table salt. It doesn't work. The people sweating for no reason lost their salt, and the people that are constantly thirsty and they pee a lot and they drink a lot, they've lost their minerals. So you've either lost your minerals or you lost your salt. Simple stuff that they know nothing about. and I'd have taken a teaspoon of salt, looking back at this disaster, which it was a bona fide emergency, and I'd have said, somebody call an ambulance and get this kid in an ambulance. But in hindsight, which doesn't work well, and I wasn't there, I would have loved to have tried a coconut water IV and the Celtic salt. Heat kills more people every year than hurricanes and tornadoes combined. Now, with my son's friends, my son did a good deed recently. See, with all these motocross riders around, and we go out to the track and stuff, one of his friends was a pro, and he broke his hip in 42 places. So once that happens, the medical community goes, great, we can make you an addict for the rest of your life. So Vicodin, OxyContin starts, he's got his cannabis card. Well, he was up to 9 Xanax a day. So my son and his parents helped stage an intervention at a party. Hey, there's a big party out here in a local city, and they tricked him into going there, and his parents were sitting there waiting. So they threw him into rehab. It's $1,000 a day for 30 days. $1,000 a day. So I have relatives that are Xanax addicts, and we have lots of people around us that, do you really think the drug companies care? Do you really think they care? They act like more people are dying in Michigan from prescriptions than heroin and cocaine combined. So there's a tremendous disaster. So when you're kids, I've had patients hurt, run over by cars, turned into complete junkies, stop the medication, break into houses, steal people's stuff, buy heroin in Detroit, get busted, and they're doing a year in jail. And the doctors have honestly looked at their parents, honestly looked and said, well, I could have used a non-narcotic pain reliever. I could have used a non-narcotic pain. Before you get yourself in some giant hole, for some of you parents, with my son rides motocross, he was at the track today. You do not want to start these addicting, the hole gets real deep. $30,000 for a month. But that's okay. As long as you OD from prescriptions, it will make a very tiny thing in the paper. That's not a big deal. Next. As I start the 4th decade of my career, actually, we'll talk about this later, not now, tomorrow. I want to congratulate America. You have gone from the lowest in infant mortality to absolute #1. You have had more of your children die. This is the Journal of Human and Experimental Toxicology. As your vaccine rates have gone up, you are now #1. #1. Congratulations. I've tried to fight this forever, and it's getting really a sad journey when I look at the immensity of what's happened to our children, but we used to be #1 in a lot of things, and we're number 100 right now, but you are #1 in ruined children and infant deaths. So I just want to make sure that I make next. Here's the rankings, and you're all the way down right at the bottom. What a coincidence. But I get to argue about that every day with the parents, but can I tell you something that sounds awful, but it's not? For a lot of the children that I've seen in my office in 30 years, death would have been a blessing. And I hate to tell you that, and it sounds awful to say that. If you knew what this does to a family and how most of these parents get divorced and they're bankrupted and broke, it's a sad, sad story. Well, your legislature went at it again. A Republican state senator filed an amendment to regulate the vaccines containing mercury. They thought they'd give that a try. It was voted down. Yeah, that's okay. Now, something that happened interesting. Now, this is on the wall also, correct, Kelly? Kelly did a great job with all these slides. This is all Kelly's work. She did a fantastic job. Two guys, they had a worldwide meeting in Japan, the United Nations Environment Program, eliminating mercury from the environment. They thought they were going to talk about the factories. They thought they were going to talk about the pollution. They were going to talk about the smokestacks, about the seafood and all the junk in the ocean. Oh no. These two brothers got up and said, you're poisoning the adults, the pregnant women, and the children with the mercury in your vaccines. They said, oh, we don't use mercury in the vaccines anymore. He said baloney, and he pulled out all the stats and laid them flat out. They said they were in, you'll see it on the paper, they were in the vaccine, 60% of the world's vaccine market was there. They were out in the halls dumping their stocks because of what these guys said. This is a globally binding instrument on the entire world. Then the next guy got up and he went after the dental industry and the mercury in your teeth. There's more in your teeth than there is coming out of the smokestacks. And the whole I'm saying is these guys rattled up the world because they weren't expected to go there, and they disturbed everybody with what they said. And I put the letters that they read to the world in Japan is on the wall. Too long to go into. I've had two nurses this week, one from Carmanos and one from Beaumont, stressed out because they want me to get shots to keep my job. I got to get shots to keep. Well, I got a question for you to ask them. If you get chicken pox, do you get chicken pox again, like the same chicken pox? If you get the cold, your body makes antibodies to a virus. So if this thing really worked, you wouldn't have to get the same shot next year because your body would develop antibodies. So to do the same thing again means the body's immune system works differently than you think it does. So the shots work great, but they wear off and you need to get them again. That's not how the immune system works. It works differently. This lady's been a warrior, and I put this up. This just came recently. I put this up for all the people who've lost their freedom, and there's a lot of people with jobs being held over their head right now, and it's really a sad scene. I got a bunch of really stressed out nurses over this, and there's August 27th, 9 a.m. to noon, toxic vaccines. So these people, Mary Toko is just a warrior. She's a local person. Mary at marytoko.com. I'd like to promote her because she's a battler. She's a serious battler. Now, my favorite thing coming up is I have to buy insurance. I grew up with awful good insurance, and I don't want to buy medical insurance because I walked away at 15, and I've continued walking. I've not turned around yet. Just the next slide is going to be interesting because that's why I'm hesitating. Next. The last lecture I talked about a famous coach in Michigan who I did not know that I fixed his daughter. She was told she had, I think it was left-sided cerebral palsy for 19 years. So what you can do mechanically with the patient that the chiropractors have really not taken seriously. This gal was in this week, and I said, you know, this is kind of an interesting story for the lecture. She was diagnosed with MS in January. Patient woke up one day, was falling to her right side, dragging her right leg, loss of motor function in her hand, and slurred speech. Had an MRI and a spinal tap, did IV and oral steroids, started Rebif. Then she got medication-induced hepatitis. So symptoms now, numbness in her hand and forearm, shocks down her spine, headaches and eye twitching. And I walked into the room. I get about, maybe 5 or 6 of these a year if I'm lucky. And these are kind of the lucky ones. This is like a gimme. And she was in this week. Come on up here. She said she had a little special story to say about this. This is July 5th. This is, what day is the next one, Kelly? I adjusted her atlas. Go ahead and tell them whatever it was that you said in the office. You would say that I don't know what it was you were going to say.
I don't remember either. I don't want to go see, I fired all my doctors. I listened to Dr. Tent, and I'm not seeing my neurologist. I'm not seeing the gastroenterologist, and I feel I don't want to see that. I can't believe that the medicine made me worse than I was in the first place, and with just a simple x-ray, I don't have tingling in my hand that I've had for 6 months. My neurologist said that I could have that for an indefinite amount of time, and after 2 days after I saw Dr. Tent, it was gone. And
what she did, and I've seen this called a stroke on older people. You sleep funny. Well, here's all your little nerves here. You sleep funny, and you kink that brainstem right there. I've had 100 of these in my career. It's a stroke on grandma. It's MS on a child. I've had fathers hand me their son. He'll see this in the waiting room. What's the matter with you? Why did you bring your son in today? Something's wrong with my son. He runs like a girl. These are the vacuum pumped. These are pull the kid out. This is why Shaquille O'Neal runs like he does. His neck's completely dislocated. His eyes crossed. He can't shoot. Watch him on the commercial. It's his right eye. And I have so many and the point is, she fought her parents about this. And what I think that struck me as I try to think back to our conversation, she said, I was thinking about going into pre-med. Correct?
I'm not thinking about that anymore.
I had one of the strangest things in my career is watching the most mismanaged messes that I've seen on kids, the colitis, the MS, the viral, the immune-compromised people, just a whole variety of messes. If you ask them, and they've been completely mishandled, what would you like to do when you get older? I'll be a nurse. Going into the system that caused such a mess in their life, to me, I fired a pediatrician at 15. I mean, I never said once I wanted to be a doctor. My mother pushed me into this. So this was not, hey, I want to do to other kids what this guy did to me. This never entered into my mind. I ran from him at 100 miles an hour. I was never going back in that direction. But she battled her parents, she changed her direction, and everybody wants to do what I do, but you don't want to do what I do. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
This is a long journey. This week. This gal was yesterday. 24 years old. Sarah's out there somewhere. She's awful scared. So she said, I'll raise my hand or something, but people can't talk in front of crowds, and she was pretty nervous about this. She was in yesterday. Patient was diagnosed with COVID, hit by a drunk driver. Then she got weakness and body aches, fevers, headaches, weight gain, fatigue, joint pain, anxiety, depression, burning in her legs. One guy said lupus, the next guy said polymyositis, and then medication-induced an interstitial lung disease. Then he ruined her lungs with the drugs. Next. She did methotrexate for 5 months, steroids and immune suppression drugs. She gained, 60, 70, 80 pounds. Now she's on steroids. Her Imurin treatments gave her stage 3 cervical dysplasia, and she's got 4 injections of Rituxan, and they're 20 grand a pop. This is what you want to get into. It's not this. $20,000 an injection. So she was in yesterday. I sent her out from specific tests, and she has mono. Her mother was crying. She was crying. You mean I don't have to? And polymyositis, was that on there? They give you all. And she said she's awful excited. Her mom, she hugged me and all this kind of stuff. And the point was, next year, I'm going to do a lecture on autoimmune diseases. Polymyositis, lupus, these garbage basket terms. And I said to her, I'm afraid to do this lecture because if I had a hospital-sized office, I could not handle the amount of people whose immune system is collapsed from the ibuprofen, from the overuse of antibiotics, from the vaccinations. This lady was in this earlier that day, and one of my great colleagues, one of my great medical colleagues at Dr. Brownstein's office sent them to me. They couldn't figure out why this woman's immune system was collapsing. So I went over her panel yesterday, and simple. She had 2 blood transfusions. And her immune system has slid down here. Not this one, the other one. I get 10 of these a week, and they get very creative diagnoses. Very creative. All right, next. Keep going. This is not me. This is the medical community. Dr. Mercola put that up. If you're under 45, since I'm older than that, I'll just croak from something else then. And since my last lecture, you watch my heart lecture. Everybody who wasn't here, you best watch my heart lecture because another patient came in. His name is Steve. He'll see this in the waiting room. He's a new patient. He's 52. He said, Doc, I got one for you. Some guy croaked at the Arctic pond in the middle of my game. Every patient my age that plays hockey like I do, somebody has expired on the ice. Another guy died. These people are... Next. How much money are you really making if you can pay a $750 million fine and be happy just to get out from under the problem? I keep track of these fines that Paxil, they had phony Paxil, they're adulterated, contaminated, nothing in it, they're just a little empty pill. So they paid $750. I catch these things, the amount of money that they pay, these are staggering numbers. $750 million. Now before you put up the next slide, Kelly, they had a list of medications that induce violence. What medication do you think causes the most violent reactions? Antidepressants. Anything else? Any other guess there? Bipolar. Now, there's a story that is going through the courts right now that I can't really talk about because it involves one of my patients that was brutal. Her life was taken. That's an open case right now. Next. Anti-smoking drugs. Prestige, Effexor, Luvox, Halcyon. That's what President Bush threw up all over the Japanese guy with. Strattera. Because might as well let him throw up and get him out of the way because he didn't make any sense anyway. So just push him to the side. Strattera, amphetamines, a malaria drug, Paxil, Prozac, number 1 was Chantix. Interesting, strange symptoms. Be careful with the medications on your brain. You want to be careful. Not everything. If you ask how much do we know about the brain, well, basically nothing. Good. Then let's not do a whole lot of things because we don't know a lot about it. Who has somebody that's not a patient that has terrible allergies? Will you run a test for me right now while you're coughing right now all over the lady in front of me? Amy is administering the zinc test. How many, is anybody else there have terrible allergies? It's not a patient. Water mostly. What does it taste like? You're puzzled about the taste. There's a group of people that you want to run this test on. And it's kind of an interesting test. So I figured, what the heck? See if trying to teach some people. We run this test a lot in the office, and a lot of kids. Now a kid, I have these people come in. I never heard this in my life. You sit in a restaurant, he can't eat a nut, and he can't have a peanut, and he can't eat this, and he can't have that, and if he eats this, he'll die, and if he eats that, and he can't do this. And I've listened to these recitals on the children. They can't eat anything. How many people have heard this or have somebody like this that knows this? Does anybody 50 or older remember you could eat a stick, you could eat a booger, you could eat crap, you could gnaw on a dog bone? I mean, how many people remember that? Okay. What happened? What happened? I mean, now something's happened because these kids, does any of you taste like water? Okay. Now, I give this to a kid that everything is allergic. And the kid says, give me another glass of water. That's a zinc test. It's supposed to taste very metally like zinc. So today, next, I'm going to explain something simple. I want you to understand this because this is a multi-billion-dollar problem. This is your short explanation. Number one deficiency in America, zinc, thiamine, and magnesium. Zinc, thiamine, and magnesium. There's copper displaces zinc. Iron displaces zinc. Have iron fortified foods, copper pipes, zinc loses. Sugar, sweets, carbs, candy, pop, booze, exercise, alcohol, junk food, tanks the thiamine. There's no B complex in the food supply today. Everything's fortified with calcium, 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 your hard waters, etc. You've exhausted your magnesium reserves. Okay, top 3 deficiencies in America. Now, when people come in today with all these allergies, it takes zinc, thiamine, and chlorides. Take zinc and thiamine together, make the hydrogen proton. The Celtic salt we talked about makes the chlorine electron. And you put these two together, it's HCl. So the whole world is on medication, Nexium, Prilosec, Pepcid, because the food is rotting in their stomach because they can't digest it. Their proteins are putrefying, their carbohydrates are fermenting, and these hardcore allergic kids think that's water. Foreign proteins not digested are your allergens. So the amount of money wasted on this digestive disaster, if I went to the biggest hospital in the state and explained this to the gastroenterology department, you're ruining their stomachs. And the more Prilosec and Pepcid you take, the more you stop these two from being absorbed. And if you use the wrong salt, you don't get any of this anyway. So running that test all day, people's food is rotting in their stomach, and once you can't digest anything, your brain goes south. You're losing their stomachs before they're losing their minds. That's the zinc test. And my allergy people, a lot of them think that that tastes awful, soapy. It should taste very tangy and metallic. And it doesn't taste like that for most people. My glasses on, I can't see. October '09, or in '09, Obama met with the G8, and they all got together, and they decided to put $20 billion into feeding Africa. So, since Obama has a special feeling for maybe some of the people from Africa, he took Michael Taylor as the senior vice president or legal counsel at Monsanto, put him in charge of the Department of Agriculture, and they're sending $20 billion in genetically modified food to Africa. And in every test that they put this food on, Bill Gates, the Rockefeller Foundation, Monsanto. By the second or third generation, all the tests, the animals are sterile. They're completely sterile. Infertility, miscarriages, abortions. And remember, the computer industry needs minerals that they don't want to go to China for, because China realizes we have this market cornered. China has the rare earth minerals that the computer industry needs. Keep your eye, and I have farmers out in the crowd. You keep your eye on Monsanto, because they are a very powerful organization. In fact, they're in charge of the Department of Agriculture. Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court judge, came from Monsanto. Agent Orange, you're going to have to get the DVD to watch the rest of this. NutraSweet, saccharin, bovine growth hormone, Roundup, genetically modified crops, Terminator seeds. They say the suicides in India are up to about 250,000 right now from Terminator seeds. Standard American diet. Keep your eyes. Remember, corporate America has taken over your country, and you better be on your toes. Things are changing, and we're heading into new territory. And yesterday was a watershed day. I'm almost to my special guest. Almost there. 41-year-old wonderful guy, head and neck cancer. Head and neck cancer, started with a spot in his tongue, spread to his lymph node, to chemo, radiation, also had 60 lymph nodes removed. They did a great job on this, the doctors that did the chemo and radiation. So I walked in, I said, "Where'd you get this from?" And he said, "We're not sure." I said, "Well, somebody's got to be sure. You've been to a number of hospitals and clinics." And yes, I said, "Well, where do you think you got this from?" He said, nobody really has given me a definitive answer. I have to warn all the homeschooling parents as we go forward from here. I have to say this because this is a huge problem today. Having oral sex with an HPV-infected woman. And he said, "That's absolutely true. That's how you got it." He said, "You're absolutely right." I said, "I know I am." Mouth and throat cancer is skyrocketing in males from, thanks. I apologize to the homeschooling parents. But this is just the way it is. And you're going to have to cross this barrier one day when they're 57. Oh, if I say poop in the room, I can have some of them in the corner. Next. Now, as we just about at my special guest star. Cancer is kind of interesting because this is Michigan. Michigan is the land of litigious people. Turn on your TV. And come to this lecture is about cancer prevention. It can't be about cancer treatment because in my 30-year journey, I've had trouble with the relatives of the cancer patients. Not the cancer patients, they're wonderful. The relatives of the cancer patients. The nurse that's a sister. The friend that's a DO. The cousin. That's the one that you're going to do battle with. because they don't want you to do anything except standard stuff. Otto Warburg was, I believe, a Nobel Prize dude. He tried to tell them in 1924 why cancer patients lose so much weight. It's not just that their immune systems are compromised, but also because glycolysis is so energy efficient that cancer cells need to consume lots of glucose to thrive and multiply. Experts are now speculating that cancer's Achilles heel may be its sweet tooth. Next. An increased breakdown of glucose is a near universal property of cancer. Cancer cells obtain energy through a process called fermentation, which they now call glycolysis, in which energy is extracted from glucose without the use of oxygen whatsoever. Laboratory experiments conclude that if glycolysis is inhibited in cancer cells, it effectively kills cancer cells, resulting in massive cell death. No sugar. They've fought this since 1924. If you have cancer, cut out all the sugar. Now I'm going to cover diets towards the end. Meat and vegetables. No sugar. Simple treatments for cancer. Cancer loves sugar. Across the board. They have fought this since 1924, and not one person has ever heard this in the cancer industry. The guy got the Nobel Prize for it. Next, keep going. I like sugar. Who here doesn't like sugar? How many of you don't like sugar? Charlotte, I know that. I believe, Charlotte, I totally believe you don't like sugar. I could have pointed you out in this crowd. Don't get Charlotte mad. She'll protest in front of your place. She's my buddy. She never protested in front of my place. How many times have you been arrested, Charlotte? Never? She protested this is a person for the environment. She goes and protests. God bless Charlotte. Blood sugar. This is what I do. I did it today. Instead of, I have to push the sugar away. With the Cataplex GTF, I take 3 GTF and 1 Jim Neem in the morning. Then I do a huge protein shake. I come back from lunch on a full stomach. I take 3 in 1. I have to kill that sweet tooth, because once you start, you can't stop, because they knew how to make that high fructose corn syrup. That's my one little cocktail. Next. Whey protein. People have had bad opinions about whey. Glutathione is the body's best kept secret in the war against free radicals and the signs of aging. Glutathione acts as your body's master antioxidant detoxifier. Our bodies produce GSH when we have adequate amounts of these critical components. Whey protein, grass-fed whey protein, is the best way to raise glutathione and your immune globulin markers. Simple stuff. That's what the SP Complete is that I have in my shake in the morning. Next.
What if you can't have whey?
Pardon?
What if you can't have whey?
What if you can't have whey? Then you miss out on the properties of glutathione and the immune globulin markers. Whey protein. There's other kinds of protein. There's rice protein. There is non-genetically modified soy protein, which some people can tolerate. Next. This was a huge article that just came out of the British Medical Journal. I've had lots of patients sitting in my office tell me, I can still picture this one grandma. She took estrogen till she got breast cancer, and they did the chemo and the radiation thing, and now they want to put her back on estrogen. So she's sitting there, and I looked at her, and I said, why would you go back to the estrogen? She said, thank you, Dr. Tent. And I said, well, why? She said, you're the first person that told me that I shouldn't take it out of all my doctors. What do you say? So when I walk into your room mumbling, I just talked to her in the previous room. She said, I've had 40 doctors tell me I need to get back on the estrogen. Well, that's what gave you the cancer. She said, I know. I said, why would you take it again? Well, I know that too, but they all said I should. I need the protection. I said, from what? She said, I don't know. You wonder what this is like every day? I cannot make this stuff up. I cannot. I had a mumbling kid in room 1 2 weeks ago. We're going over his hair analysis to find out what kind of mother load they put into his head. And before I could get in the room, the husband and wife are sitting there. She said, the pediatrician just called. They said he's due for his next round of shots. I said, he's not talking from the last round. She said, I know. I said, well, did you know? Does he know that? She said, yes. And I said, this didn't make him think anything? He said, no. I talk to myself when no one's around. I stare off into space. Whoa. What is, I don't know. This is my day. That's what I tell people. I've told everybody that wanted to do my job, don't do it. Your skin isn't thick enough. You're not going to take. The guy that taught me snapped. My mentor snapped. He was gone for 2 years. He had a complete nervous breakdown after 20 years of my practice. And I'm here at 30. I haven't snapped yet, but it's close. So this is the point. They said all these patients for 30 years were told, look, if you get cancer from the estrogen, it's an easy one. It's simple. It's easy to treat. Well, they just said in the British Medical Journal that was a complete, total lie. You get a very aggressive, life-threatening breast cancer. They lied. I've been listening to this for 30 years. It was a lie. And there's your reference that they said this was a lie. I got 2 things. Okay, good. Now, there's more abnormal results, false positives than positives. British Journal of Surgery, 2011. Next. I gotta move along. Myth 1, 10 facts out of this is a reference journal. Breast cancer is not preventable. Pink ribbons are sold to raise money to support breast cancer victims. No, these are mostly funds used to recruit more breast cancer patients. Myth 3, the only proven treatments for breast cancer are chemotherapy and radiation. You're going to watch you're going to call the Ralph Moss thing and listen to what options are out there that are supported by the literature. Chemotherapy is safe and doesn't cause permanent damage to your health. Well, that's kind of stretching it. Mammograms are the best way to detect cancer. Well, there's other ways that doctors can use. BRCA-positive women should consider mastectomies. The cruciferous vegetables target those genes. I'm going to cover that at the end. I'm going to talk about what I take every day. My parents are in their 80s. I'm in my 50s. We got a long stretch of reasonably healthy genetic codes going through my family. The cancer nonprofits are searching for a cure for cancer. Muscular dystrophy was cured in the 50s with a mineral. There's no cure for breast cancer. Well, there's a lot of natural things out there. Suzanne Summers was one. Read her book. She'll tell you how she did it. If my mother had breast cancer, I'll get it too. That's false. Sunlight causes cancer. How many people had a medical doctor to tell them just that you should stay out of the sun? Has any medical person ever told you to get into the sun? They said if you wanted to do one thing for breast cancer, get a suntan. And they've told everybody in my 30-year career to stay out of the sun. This was a disaster. Now, David, you're on the air. This is my special guest, David, who's a science teacher. David has been a patient a long time. He's going to tell you a short little story about, I said, David, I want you to check something out. And he checked this stuff out and came in one day all excited. He said, my gosh, I can't believe what I learned. And he gave me an incredible explanation in the room in the middle of my packed day. He was enthusiastic, he was excited. And I said, I want you to come and repeat to the crowd what you learned studying minerals. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Tent. We'll get this a little higher. I've known Dr. Tent for 20 of those 30 years he's been practicing. And along the way, he's put me on a lot of different pathways, which I've then further explored. Let's see if we get this to work. Oh, that's not working. Oh, it did? Okay. One of the pathways he put me on after he did the Kill the Cravings lecture, I started looking at the research of Dr. Wallach and trace minerals. And we put our chickens for the annual fall broiler contest on trace minerals and basically the Mighty 90, 60 plus minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 3 essential fatty acids. And we started winning this contest. For the last 11 years,
Against the universities. He was beating the universities. I gotta say that. This was not just winning the contest, he was beating the universities.
They didn't believe we weren't using steroids, but after 6 years of winning first place, and then I actually duplicated the experiment with 2 other high schools, and they beat us a couple of times using the same formula. So we've proven it works. Cancer's touched my family. This is very personal to me. It took my dad, age 49, my mom, 53, and 3 years ago, my granddaughter at 20 months. All 3 of them chemotherapy. My dad was raised the old way, and you always respect your doctors. They're the ultimate authority. This was an old 1950s Camel cigarette magazine ad. So if it's my doctor smokes, it must be safe, right? Well, the AMA did a study after Wallach came out and did his study and said, well, the average MD dies at 58. Well, according to the latest statistics, the average American dies at 78, so if you don't go to medical school, you can pick up 20 years on your life. We're not getting the bang for the buck, folks. We rank 50th in the world for longevity. That means there's 49 other countries living longer than us, and we pay twice the average industrial nation for health care. Albert Einstein put it quite well. He said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's our medical system. My friend Dr. Glidden, a naturopath in Chicago, put me onto this study on the contribution of chemotherapy for 5-year survival rates. And it was actually published in the Journal of Clinical Oncology in 2004. So your doctors should know about this, right? It was a 14-year study, all randomized control. And it was two Australian medical doctors that did this for Australia and the United States. Here's the result. The overall contribution of chemotherapy to the 5-year survival in adults was estimated to be 2.3% in Australia, 2.1% in the United States. That's 14 years worth of data. That means chemotherapy is not more than 3% effective or 90%, 7% ineffective. That's their own study. I teach biology, one of the things I do, and there's about 100 trillion cells in the body. And to get you ready for this tonight, Dr. Tent wanted me to give you some basic genetics and stuff. There's 23 chromosome pairs in the nucleus of our cells, and they're all made up of deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA. It controls cell growth, division, reproduction, and production of proteins. Basically, this controls everything, how we function. Made up of 4 things: adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. It's the sequence or order of the codes that determines what's made. It's the recipe card for everything. And this is how it works. It comes out in, for every 3 letters, it's kind of like Morse code. It determines what amino acid is actually made. And it, Cal? Yeah. And it looks something like this. This is interesting. This actually came from the Department of Energy because they're very interested in genetics. That's how our amino acids are made. Basically, it's a chemical code that comes out of the nucleus, and these things happen. Well, how do we injure our DNA and our chromosomes? Radiation. We're exposed to all kinds of radiation, chemicals, what we eat, and stuff we eat, stuff we're exposed to, faltering nutrition, absence of critical minerals, or an imbalance of minerals. It works like this. Person 1 had the correct DNA sequence, it had AAA, TTT, got a normal protein. Person 2 was exposed to something, and they had to substitute thymine, and they ended up with a non-functioning or low-functioning protein. Person 3 got cytosine instead, and disease started. This is the ribonucleic acid codon wheel. This is the messenger that goes out to make all our amino acids. And this is how it's all going to tie into this special thing Dr. Tent asked me to do. Messenger RNA role is to carry the chemical sequence out. Next. Amino acids combine to form proteins. RNA nitrogen bases have 64 combinations of 3 to make 21 amino acids. Basically, like C, A, U would be histidine. A, U, G is methionine, etc. Next. There's only one start codon, methionine. For every protein sequence that is made, it is started with methionine. It's very, very important. Next. There are 3 stop codons. That's what stops the protein sequence. Otherwise, if the stop codon is not present, the cell has to basically break it down through fermentation and reassemble everything. This is what Dr. Tent put me on. Minerals for the Genetic Code is written by a nice little magazine called Acres USA, Charles Walters. It's a review of Richard Ulrey, another chiropractor and also a geneticist. And he takes the importance of trace minerals much further. He states that there are 64 different minerals that code to 64 different parts of the spine and the 64 RNA codons. The light went on. Oh my gosh, this is so simple. Next. When you come to Dr. Tent, he does this thing, okay? This muscle reflex thing. And what he's doing, he's checking your switches. And when you get an adjustment, what happens is it acts as a DNA switch to turn things on. There's 32 bones in the spinal column, 32 discs, a total of 64 in the spine. 64 codons for RNA, associated with 21 amino acids, and the deficiency in a related mineral for each of those things can result in poor gene expression or degenerative disease. Next. Start codon, AUG, methionine, very important because nothing gets made without it, is tied to rubidium. According to Dr. Ulrey, I'm reporting on this thing. Stop is tied to hydrogen, stop 2 is tied to sulfur, stop 3 is tied to yttrium. Minerals are needed to give the amino acids 3-dimensional character and things like that so they work correctly like a lock and key. Yep. Okay, rubidium is responsible for 99% of all the protein building, to start them all. Methionine is governed by selenium. So they work together, and that ties to your B complex. How do you get it? Rubidium and selenium are best obtained by consuming selenomethionine. Okay. Selenium, according to Dr. Ulrey, it activates the p53 tumor suppression gene. Now, this just came out in September officially, won the court case. My friend Dr. Wallach sued the FDA, and he got these statements that can be officially said. Selenium may reduce the risk of certain cancers, and then here's the disclaimer from the FDA because they can't say it, the cure word. Selenium may produce an anti-carcinogenic effects in the body. Well, that took millions of dollars to get those 2 things released from the FDA. Okay, we have 23 chromosome pairs. On each of them, there are certain things that do certain things. Let's look at number 17 here for a second. Next one. Next one. Okay, this chromosome 17 has been sequenced in the Human Genome Project. Let's see what's on there. Oh, tumor suppression gene, p53, which codes to selenium. Ovarian cancer, colorectal, breast cancer, esophageal cancer, T-cell, ovarian, lung cancer, leukemia, T-cell, leukemia, Apoptosis inhibitor, that's the list there. You can get that on the U.S. Department of Energy Human Genome Project. That's just on one of the chromosomes. What's this apoptosis thing? Apoptosis is a normal cell death. We have a programmed cell death. You only have a certain life cycle. Well, the problem is cancer bypasses that, and it can continue to proliferate. Next. Okay, let's look at stop codon 1. It's sequenced 19 million times. It's best obtained from consuming filtered water. And misuse of hydrogen occurs when you consume hydrogenated oils like margarine. Sulfur. Oh, some of our modern sulfur miracle drugs. Wonder why? Well, here's why. It's the second stop codon. You can get some of your sulfur from glucosamine sulfate, chondroitin sulfate, MSM, and various other things Dr. Tent's going to talk about. When you put sulfur back into the body's chondrocytes, the cell can make new cartilage. And I'm a perfect example of that because he put me on some stuff a few years ago when I tore my knee up. And 2 weeks after, when I went back to U of M, and they were getting ready to carve me up, they came out at 45 minutes later and said, your meniscus is regrowing. We don't understand that. You don't have to have surgery. Now, this is another, yttrium is a very important one. It's, Horowitz did a study. He gave mice yttrium, and their lifespan increased threefold. And there's been some additional studies with this. Next. Okay. To consume the intestine by two probiotics. And if these two probiotics are not present in the intestine, you cannot use the yttrium. It just passes out. They actually consume it, and we use the byproduct of it. Okay? So what happens is, if there's no yttrium in the food, then these two probiotics starve, no third termination codon sequence. So you're not able to make up to maybe a third of your proteins. Aluminum suppresses yttrium. Aluminum's in your city water. Aluminum's in deodorants, antiperspirants. Well, my mom died from breast cancer, lymphatic. She had a certain thing she was putting on every day. Okay? India is very low Alzheimer's. They use turmeric, which is otherwise known as curcumin, which is very high in yttrium and boron. Selenium acts as a backup. And also this Wen Chen Wang in 2003, it enhances the absorption and distribution of selenium. So you can see those are some of the important, of the 64. How do you get the rest? Well, they need to be plant-derived because you cannot absorb inorganic minerals. You only can absorb 3 to 12%. You need something that has a negative charge. When the plant takes the mineral out of the soil and turns it into an organic mineral, it takes on a negative charge, which is attracted to the positive charge of your intestines, and you get 98% absorption. And that's how to get the rest of the minerals. Dr. Tent's going to talk about that. For further minerals reading, Minerals for the Genetic Code is available from acresusa.com, and these other things from Dr. Wallach, you can contact that stuff, or you can see me after. Thank you.
Very much. Good job. How many years ago was when you won all those contests?
Oh, we do it every year.
Okay, you're still.
And that was the 11-year record. 6 firsts, 2 or 3 seconds, third, fourth.
And as I've kept 300 entries every year, and the universities, how did you do that? They can't handle that he put the chickens on minerals. They have no ability to talk, they can't comprehend that. You fed the chickens minerals. You didn't use growth hormones or nothing. No, I gave him food. He beats the universities that many years in a row. All right, moving along. Now to how to do this. How do I try to accomplish this personally? 20 cancer symptoms you got to keep your eye on. This is going to be, these DVDs are available for people to take out, and you can buy them. I'd just rather have you watch them, bring it back, do whatever you want. Next. Bloating or abdominal weight gain. Gilda Radner talked about some strange bloating. The 5th gynecologist found it. The first 4 missed it. She had ovarian cancer. Now, everybody feels bloated from time to time. I've caught a number of these on patients. For the women, it's down here. It's not up here. Way down here. I had a skinny gal tell me, I feel like there's not enough room for my parts. Strange bloating, it's not for your intestinal tract. It's down lower, so don't, everybody feels bloated from the crummy fats and oils in our diet, but it's way down low that they have a problem. Next. I had a guy in this week. He proudly told me he has had 5 dye studies on his heart and 7 CAT scans. He was excited. I said, that's 1 million x-rays. You've had a million x-rays. Yeah, I probably glow everywhere I go. He's happy. Didn't disturb him a bit. The stuff, I have children getting CAT scans on their legs because their growth plates hurt because the doctors have never seen growing pains on children. You're talking about x-rays. I'm not talking about CAT scan. I'm talking about an x-ray. You don't x-ray your kids unless you have to. It's not just, I can't tell you how many I've witnessed. Can't tell you. Just, if insurance paid for it, they're happy. Have Google SV40. Now look, I could croak in 6 months real easy. I remember the day I stood in line and took that monkey virus. I remember the day. I can picture it. Little tartar sauce cup. Joan, you remember that day? You're shaking your head. David, you remember that day? My dad, my dad heard they're passing out free stuff across the street. Is it free? I want a bushel basket full. So we dutifully walked across the school because they said, line up. Poured her down. And I had stupid friends that I can remember went in line for the second time. I buried 6 of my friends or patients with a brain tumor. Google it. SV40. Now look, when you want to win an argument, I'm going to make it simple. Does foreign DNA upset your body? Yes. Where do they get all these vaccines from? Animals. So you're putting foreign DNA in my body. Isn't that an irritant? Yes. Isn't my body going to look at that? Forget the heavy metals. When I last year with that H1N1 thing, I said to my wife, how many people are paying attention? ABC News, we don't have enough H1N1 for everybody, and all these chicken eggs are going down the assembly line. How many people remember that? Yep. I said, is anybody out there thinking, I'm going to put a chicken egg virus inside my body? No, because American Idol's on at 9, and I don't want to miss that guy the way he sings. Lord have mercy. Where is your line in the sand? I drew mine at 15. I have no health insurance. I don't live in fear. That thing scares me. That thing scares me. That thing takes plants in my head. I think there's a lot of toxins. These are subtle energy changes that David talked about. Subtle changes in your body. You start taking the supplements I take, it'll take you 2 to 3 years to tank your cancer levels. 2 to 3 years as all these little codes and switches start to talk to each other. You sit and talk on that cell phone 8 hours a day, I think you're going to get your head whacked before your body can right itself. Live under those power lines, those big ones that you can light a fluorescent tube up. Go have 15 CAT scans because somebody else paid for it and be all excited about it. You're not going to win. You're going to lose. But you Google that and find out what's in there. Reduce your risk. Now, the more sunlight, the less cancer. I'm still arguing with people about this. Still. This is the age of information. Now at your tent, should I put sunscreen on? Sunscreen on? This is Michigan. There is no sun. This is ridiculous. The age of information, I have a very ignorant group of people that I've been watching for 30 years. This is not like Stone Age. They got the internet in their home and they've looked up nothing. Nothing. It's the same stuff over and over. I talk about Nothing changes. It never changes. If they said if you had enough vitamin D, 77 out of every 100 cancers would have never formed. 77 out of 100 people that you know that are dead would have never had cancer if they got in the sun. This is in the literature now, and some, God bless them, simpleton this week, before I'm done Friday, is going to ask me if they should get in the sun. The sun isn't up there to kill a whitey. He gave us the Republicans and the Democrats. Simple articles about sunlight. Now, on a blood test, you want it between 70 and 100. I got a guy, I'll tell you what, I had a guy come in who was a supervisor on a golf course. You know those professional, like construction workers? You know, we used to build things in this country a long time ago. And those guys that are like always tanned, those red, they're not even tan, they're red. So I had a golf course supervisor come in, he's red. Spent his whole life outside, his vitamin D levels were 14. Wow. 14. If you got cancer, you want it between 70 and 100. All you people want between 70 and 100. 70 and 100. I don't know, whatever it is, 70 and 100. I was using one of those Sunsplash units, and I had mine up to 53 in the wintertime to see there's a safe tanning booth. And Mercola talks about it, it's called a Sunsplash, and I was testing that. I got up to 53. But we'll talk about how to protect yourself. Cut your breast cancer risk in half. Sunlight. Sunlight. Unbelievable. So there, if you got enough sun, all those cancers just might not show up in your body. All those cancers. Colon, breast, esophageal. If I had you raise your hands, like when I never heard of throat cancer 30 years ago. How many people know somebody that died of esophageal cancer? Raise your hand. Look at this. I watched a bunch of them. They cut it out, they got it all. No, they didn't. It grew back. Then they cut it out, they got it all. No, they didn't. It grew back. And they cut it out and got it all, and they ended up dying from it. Jim, 52 years old, one of the characters in my practice. To lose him, and I think that a lot of the soda pop is scorching benzene. Look at benzoic acid. It's horrible. You're going to roast your throat with that stuff. Pick up your pop can. I don't want to say the kind of which pop it is. It's a yellow one because they'll just shoot me anyway. They're going to shoot me anyway one day, but why speed it up? I put people on 5 drops is what a lifeguard can get. Well, my doctor finally figured this out, and he put me on this 1 pill a week for 50,000 IUs. I don't want to use it like that. I can't do 50,000 IUs. A lifeguard can get 10 in a day. I do the lifeguard dose. But I have yet to see somebody whose vitamin D levels were in the cancer protection range, 70 to 100. Next. Pretty simple. No sunlight, get mono, stay away from sunlight. Glandular fever is mono, you get MS. No sunlight, mono, MS. Pretty simple combination. Next, selenium. You don't want to take pills, eat 3 Brazil nuts a day. Now the selenium has to be in the soil where they got the Brazil nut from. That can be a stretch. Selenium and cancer. You need to get selenium. It doesn't stay in your body long, and I'm going to cover that. 50% reduced chance of dying from cancer with adequate levels of selenium. These are huge. Now, if you want to, sulforaphanes and selenium. I'm going to show you a very cool every day. I did it today. And my protein shake in the morning. I take a scoop, there's the nitro greens, and I take two, these are 200, they're selenium-methionine. I'm done with my vegetables for the day. It's over. I take my Tupperware cup, it's about that big, I fill it up with that much water. First thing I do is take 2 heaping spoons of raw chocolate. It's in the office, not processed, cracked the nut, organic chocolate. 2 tablespoons. That's an antidepressant, that's a mood elevator, so I can talk about Lipitor. And I can talk about vaccinations, and I can go in the room with the kid. It's all messed up, and I'm gonna argue with the nurse. And then I'm gonna start, so to get my moods up, so I can talk about the same thing for the, I figured out, I've had about 1,600 Mondays talking about this. 1,600 Mondays, 1,700 Mondays. So I take 2 tablespoons of raw chocolate. I stick, I'm gonna get to this one. I put some IAG in it, arabinogalactans. I take some cinnamon, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and put it on top of that to shut off, helps me control my blood sugar. I take a couple of huge tablespoons of SP Complete, shake it up, breakfast. My best meal of the day. Eating slows me down. More eat, I gotta travel light in the morning because this, I don't know, some numbskull says you gotta eat like a king at breakfast and a queen at lunch and a pauper at dinner. I think he was an idiot and didn't have a job. Pete's sake, I think he's a complete idiot. Selenium is an anti-cancer medication. Next, I'm just making sure I get all this in. And I give you all the sources so you can check everything out. Increased cell proliferation, apoptosis, suppression of blood cancer cells. This is just, it controls the sequencing. That combination, this pill magnifies that 13 times. I want all the, I don't have health insurance. And I watch an industry that says, okay, the shot we're gonna give you is gonna be $57,000 and you need 10 of them. The treatment's going to be $276,000. How many people, you know, with this lady who's in the crowd with that mono, how much supplements does an $80,000 in 4 shots buy? $80,000 for 4 shots. And I had to still fix her anyway. Unbelievable. And Dr. Orley, now, just for interest's sake, when I lectured to the physicians, I lectured with Dr. Olry from up north. I was the guy after him on Sunday. He was brilliant. Minerals for the Genetic Code. Get the book and read it. The guy's a genius. I totally complimented him. To follow him was just an honor because the guy's just brilliant. My gosh, you know, I wouldn't even want to debate him on anything because he knows the genetic code. Next. What kind of cancer? Breast, esophageal, stomach, prostate, liver, and bladder. But this by itself is awful green. So when I stick this between the chocolate and the SP Complete and the IAG and the cinnamon, I can get it down. But if I had to do this one by itself, this is heirloom seeds. Brussels sprouts, broccoli, all that kind of stuff. The alfalfa, the sprouts, and I'm not eating any of this. I'd rather just drink it and call it a day. Now, the number one, curcumin has the highest, the most literature. I'm going to show you what I take 2 of every day and how to know what to take. Curcumin is the beast. If they had one drug that could do what curcumin does, it would cost a fortune, maybe $20,000 a pill. Curcumin is the secret. That's the secret. More literature about that than anything in cancer. What's number 2 in the literature? It's number 2. Vitamin D. Curcumin and vitamin D are the strongest. All right. Curcumin changes the regulation of DNA to help kill cancer and manages the downstream consequences. Genes are blueprints, and these blueprints are activated and controlled by something else entirely, namely their environment. They've checked twins and twins and twins. And that one can have some fatal cancer and one will never get it. So there are genetic cancers, there is exposures, your environment controls a ton of it. Diet, toxic exposures, as well as thoughts and emotions can create more than 30,000 different variations from each blueprint. Next. If you started doing all this today that I do, and I'm going to show you what I do every day, it'd take you 2 to 3 years to tank your cancer. 2 to 3 years. Not going to be something I'm going to do for a week. Back to proliferation of tumor cells, inflammation, transformation of cells from normal to etc. Next. You guys can get to the CD and read it. Just making sure I get all this in. Genetic expression, like David said, apoptosis. Epigenetics, things outside the cell. Outside. 830 peer-reviewed studies about vitamin D. I'm telling you, within an hour tomorrow, 1 hour, Dr. Tent, but the doctor said I had to use sunscreen. Within the first hour, I'll get a sunscreen question. Now, I'm going to teach you this combination. Now, I take 2. I'm going to show you what I don't take. What I take, the more I read about curcumin, actually, the more I take. At 10:30 in the morning, in between my pills in the morning and whatever my simple lunch is, I get the herbs I use are out of Australia. I want to show you why. This is the combination in this. I talked about this pill 15 years ago, and I called them MediHerb in Queensland, Australia. And I said, I'm going to talk about your pill. And they laughed and patted me on the head and said, oh, that's good, Dr. Tent, you're going to talk about our pill. I had the world back ordered on the 13th day. They had completely run out of it. It was kind of interesting. And Kerry Bone, who's the guy that came up with all these formulas, called me and said, because I explained to him what he had. He said, it looks like you have found a new use for my pill. Curcumin in green tea shuts off the first 2 stages of cancer. GF1 and GF2. There's 4 stages, growth factors. Shuts off the first 2. Now this is how you read an herbal label. This is a drug in Australia. It's a 5-to-1 extract. 5 times 200 is a gram. Green tea, 25-to-1 from 4.2 grams. This tells you the active component. How much you look at the American label, there's nothing on it. Who knows what it is? You could have lawn shavings in this. They'll arrest the owner of the company in Australia. They'll arrest him if this isn't in the label. They have strict labeling laws. Here's curcumin, 25-to-1, 25 times 80, it's 2 grams. And curcumin's hard to absorb. I take 4 grams of curcumin and 2 grams, or 8 grams of the green tea, and 2 of those. And then here's your grape seed at the bottom. What does grape seed do? For capillary strength and the procyanidins, I can get hit with a slap shot and not bruise because all the goals are in the front of the net. Don't forget that. So that keeps your vessels strong. Next. They found, I've had girls taking Tylenol to get their liver enzymes to 28,000 on Tylenol, taking 2-3 Tylenol a day. It's over the counter, it's pretty easy. I've seen their liver enzymes up to 28,000. Kelly, I know this galactose thing is... How many people know a family of ovarian cancers? Everybody's had ovarian cancer. Now, I have milk and cheese here, and I'm not going to be able to get to this, but I'm going to explain it. I'm lactose intolerant. Milk makes my nose run, makes me clear my throat, constipates me, clogs up everything. It's not worth it. but I can tolerate galactose. Now I'm going to just have to show you because I'm running out of time. I test horrible with milk, but I test strong with yogurt or cheese. I can handle the galactose. I can't handle the lactose. So how do you spot a galactose intolerant woman? She lived a perfect life. She got breast cancer, and they took it out, and it moved to the bone, and they took part of the bone out. Then it went to the other breast, and they took that out. Then they took part of the breast off, and it moves to the other one, took part of that rib out. It keeps eating them away. Very easy to spot. I got 35-year-old women, 40-year-old women. I was going to test, which I'm running. I really had good intentions. Weak, strong, a piece of cheese. So if you have all these cancers on healthy people, the galactose women muscle test poor on both the cheese and the milk. It's a hard thing to understand, but I have all these women that come in that in the middle of their life didn't take hormones, have some aggressive cancers, and it doesn't kill them. It just keeps eating them away, and the doctors don't know what to do. I've stopped milk and cheese on some of these women, and it stopped. And they were like, that was cool. And I had some of them whisper in my patients' ears, we know that dairy causes cancers in certain people. We don't know what to do about it because the milk industry is very powerful. You can pay subsidies to an industry so they don't milk the cows. You pay them not to produce milk while you make them use hormones that makes them give more milk from the Department of Agriculture, BST, BGH. Did you understand that? I made it as simple as I could. So if you have all these cancers in your family, if you bring in a piece of cheese and some fresh milk, you muscle test and can learn something before it suck the life right out of you. Next, onions and garlic protect you from cancer. Garlic, in the literature, garlic's powerful for heart disease and cancer. Next, there's a new name for Google Sweet Misery. Watch Sweet Misery. It's the story of NutraSweet. You can thank Donald Rumsfeld for aspartame. That's his baby. That's one of his babies. He's got a few babies. Weapons of Mass Destruction, that was one of his. NutraSweet's another one. The bird flu. Old Donnie. The bird flu. Well, Tamiflu was his company, so when I watched people trying to buy Tamiflu at $500 a pop during the H1N1 scare. We're all gonna die.
Yes, we are.
What about Don Rumsfeld and that moon landing, Dad? Was that good? Donnie was right in the middle of that. That's a story for me and my dad and mom watched this weekend. Next. Pesticide chemical exposures. Do you know another organism that would put things that kill on their food? Roundup Ready. Can you imagine Roundup Ready food? If you went to the local, go across the street, go across the street and get chips and salsa. The closest chips and salsa you get, 96% chance it's Roundup Ready chips, corn chips. 96%. It's gone. It's over. It's done. 96%. They put the pesticide. I want to see you get away from the pesticide inside the food. And guess what? I'll tell you what the next one is they're working on right now, 2,4-D. 2,4-D was the active ingredient in Agent Orange. You're going to be eating Agent Orange soon. And you're going to like it. Pharmaceutical drugs. Today in the paper, when I was looking through my notes, they had that woman in Detroit. They're taking her to court because she won't put her kids on psychotropic drugs. Did anybody see that in the paper today? Who saw that today in the paper? It's today in the paper. They're going to tell your kids, you're going to take pharmaceutical. She's only 13. I don't want to put her on this. Tough.
They did it with Ritalin.
It was Ritalin. Why do you think my kids have never been to Dylan's back there? My kids have never been to a medical person. They don't know, not for anything. I'm not taking them over there. That guy, I don't want him in the system. Do you have any health problems? No. Has he had his shots? No. What about tetanus? I'll say no again. We'll say no again. And then they get mad and just stomp away. But the line in the sand is drawn. I want to see you hold him down at 19. Good luck. Obesity, stress, poor sleeping habits, shut your lights off at night. You need a dark room at night to rest your reproductive parts, sunshine. Watch my earthing lecture. Next. Winning the war against cancer, you got to eat vitamin D up. Control your insulin, keep your sugar under control. Lots of good oils. I did lectures on that. Secret History of Essential Fatty Acids, you can watch that. I play hockey twice a week despite walking 9 miles a day, because 9 miles a day is not enough exercise. So I'm in a tough men's league. Eat according to your nutritional type. 85% of disease is caused by emotions. You could give this little test here. Jealousy, anger, depression, envy, remorse, hatred, rage, unwillingness to forgive. Those are the people that like to get cancer. Now this is very important stuff. This, some of the most important stuff is at the end. Eat cruciferous vegetables. I'm going to get to that. Ideal body weight, sleep, reduce. You know, I like driving on the road. People got them little stinky things swinging back and forth from their rearview mirror. This little chemical. I want to make sure I'm poisoned while I'm driving my car. I want to smell this crap right in the car. Look, I got a suggestion. Take a bath. Just take a bath. Get a shower, wash off, you'll be fine. Roll the window down if you smell. Don't put the stinky thing. Get the car cleaned. It's kind of scary. Yeah, I like that thing. Watch charbroiling foods. That's nasty. Next. Now, this is important. This is very important. I owe my health to this dude. Royal Lee made the first vitamin in history. Catalin was that vitamin. Over the horizon radar in World War II, Royal Lee, shooting through the propellers. Every drill that every dentist ever used on your teeth, he designed, and he never drilled on one patient. We won World War II because of Royal Lee. He had 17 patents. He was a bachelor, a multimillionaire. First guy to say Coca-Cola will kill you and white bread's poison. So they sued him. He was a millionaire. He had fun playing with the government. He had no kids. This was his life, making Whole Foods. Next. I'm going to give you some highlights from Gonzalez. This is very, 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 very important. Very, very important. Next, kind of a friend of mine. Symptoms of visceral disease. This is Francis Pot. These guys were geniuses. Now, all that people know today is LeBron James, and they know about who threw the latest football pad. These guys were geniuses. They were pillars in the 20th century. Francis Pottinger. Next. These are my accelerators. The people with the lump in the throat, dry mouth, get chilled, keyed up, can't relax, choke on foods, cold, clammy, nervous stomach, cold sweats, staring, appetite reduced, the people whose heart pounds when they lay down. These people are running too hot. That's your accelerating nervous system. Next. These people run cold. These people have a strong immune system. Complete different bowels, muscle cramps, butterfly stomach, indigestion. These people are my brakes. Slow starters, perspire easily, difficulty swallowing, pulse slow, irregular. Accelerator, brake. This is your immune system. The other one's your fight or flight. Each one, now there's a list for you patients. There's a thing that you can get and take home and fill out. Are you sympathetic dominant or are you parasympathetic dominant? Next. The parasympathetic dominants, the brakes, need to be a meat-based diet. This one diet for everybody nonsense is ridiculous. And nobody that treats cancer is going to do the same thing to everybody. The sympathetic dominants, these are my plant-based people. Meat brakes, accelerators, fight or flight, immune system. Those who consume nutrient-depleted, refined, processed, chemicalized foods usually end up with both branches hobbled and all tissue, organs, and glands functioning poorly. Dr. Gonzalez's book. You get cancer and go to Gonzalez, he gives you a 32 question, 80 pages to determine exactly how you're supposed to eat. Depends on your nationality, depends on your nervous system, depends on if you're too acid or too alkaline. That's 50% of what he does. What kind of people you eat wrong for your body type, you're going down. I don't care what you do. A sympathetic dominant person, my accelerators, eating a meat diet, they get anxiety, restless, insomnia, hyperactivity, mood swings, lack of concentration. Next, my sympathetic dominant patients eating a meat diet, gastroesophageal reflux, they become diabetics, high blood pressure, heart failure, hypomania, schizophrenia, strokes, more bacteria, viruses, and colitis. Next. If a parasympathetic dominant, more of my brachial, I would consider myself more parasympathetic dominant. I'm an alkaline, parasympathetic dominant, Pollock meat eater. Okay? Parasympathetic dominant, first symptoms they're going to get if they start being a vegan, they're going to need more sleep, they're not going to feel rested, they're going to be depressed, exaggerated immune response, allergies, hay fever, leaky membranes. The porous membranes allow irritating antigens to penetrate, histamine, serotonin. Next. Now, parasympathetic, the brakes, eating a plant-based diet, as it gets worse, they got angina, asthma, osteoarthritis, psoriasis, leukemia, multiple myeloma, lymphoma. Certain diets aggravate certain nervous systems. And I'm giving you the two extremes for the sake of time. There's about 10 to 12 gradations in between this. Severe cardiac arrhythmias, more viruses. These people are going to get viruses. No bacteria. Bacteria don't like these people. Suicidal depression. Next. A sympathetic dominant pancreas is inefficient and synthesizes a low amount of various digestive enzymes. A predominantly vegetarian diet will stimulate the weak parasympathetic nerves, activating the pancreas into greater, all the enzymes in the food on a sympathetic dominant patient is going to help this person. In parasympathetic dominance, the pancreas is durable and efficient, capable of manufacturing lots of enzymes. That's how Gonzalez treats his cancer patients. Therefore, this type tends to be protected against hard sympathetic malignancies. The hard tissue tumors, breast, colon, and lung cancers, which don't stand a chance with the large quantities of pancreatic enzymes. Next. Hard tumors of the breast, colon, lung, ovary, pancreas, and prostate are associated with extreme sympathetic dominance. You see immune cancers, you see hard tissue cancers. Sympathetic dominance rarely develop Hodgkin's disease, leukemia, lymphoma, and multiple myeloma due to their inherently weak immune system. Immune systems have a lot to do with this. Parasympathetic dominance rarely suffers severe bacterial infection due to their efficient immune system. I've had 3 sick days in 30 years as a parasympathetic dominant, meat-eating, alkaline. That's why I do that zinc B thing to make my body more acidic. Next, balanced metabolizers better have a balanced diet. By eating the right diet, they'll be able to resist viral and bacterial infections. You're going to have to get the DVD to get into this. Balanced metabolizers tend to be protected against cancer. If you get an extreme diet on a balanced person, they can get pushed into one side or the other. By eating the right diet, there'll be resistance to viral and bacterial infections. So you do the parasympathetic and you do the sympathetic and you check it off. If you're right in the middle, you're balanced. If you lean to one side or the other, that's your side. Next. A sympathetic dominant smoker eating a vegetarian diet might be protected against lung cancer. How many people see the guy that smoked 78 years and he does it. And the next guy, Dana Reeves, got lung cancer and croaked right after Superman and never smoked a cigarette in her life. A parasympathetic who smokes rarely develops lung cancer due to the protection from the high output of pancreatic proteolytic enzymes. A parasympathetic, a break vegetarian who smokes will greatly multiply the risk for one of the immune cancers. Next. Watch your estrogen and growth factors, your vaccines, pesticides, chemicals, your bad emotions, toxic relationships. Watch the earthing lectures for EMF, dark room, immune suppression, antibiotics. Motrin suppresses your immune system. People take it like candy. Ibuprofen shuts off your immune system. Know if you can tolerate galactose or lactose. Next. Watch that earthing lecture. Determine, that grounding thing's huge. So if you haven't seen that, that's important. Next. I take a half a tea. I take the grape juice at night. I take a half a teaspoon. I splash that in. I need my minerals, and I need my minerals, and I need my minerals because I need these cells turning over properly. Next. Take my Catalin, my trace minerals. This is my little cocktail, my 91 things. I'm very religious about my supplements because I don't have health insurance. I don't trust the system, and I'm going to keep strengthening my system. Economical. Next. I'm getting there. If you eat to double broccoli and Brussels sprouts together, the cruciferous family shuts off lots of cancer things. There's my estrogen pesticide chemical remover. I got soccer players at 14. They take an antihistamine, they play soccer, and they come in with tremors. And I know my son's got tremors. Well, he must be a soccer player. Well, how did you know that? Well, he's got tremors. He must take some kind of allergy medication. Well, how do you know that? Yes, he does. Well, he blocked his detox pathway, and now he shakes from all the chemicals on the lawn. I got 14-year-old kids with tremors from playing soccer. This is what I take. Girls, my staff in unison, what do you call the men that come in here? Weenie boys. They call the men weenie boys. Those metrosexual guys, because the estrogen's killing them. I take my cruciferous complex to keep my liver. There's your Brussels. I'm not eating Brussels sprouts, broccoli. That's about 40 of each of those that I take in my sack, my 2 cruciferous complex. Next. I know I'm going to, right here, I take 2 of these, I take my scoop, I take my 2 Vitanox and Astragalus, and I put my IAG inside my protein shake. I'm fussy about that. I don't want to grow that strange lump that I got to deal with later. Next. I just might make it. I'm absolutely making it. This stuff's disgusting, but in my chocolate and my shake, I can handle it. That goes down at lunch. I'm baking in the sun. I'm not doing my D now. I'm a sun person. That goes in my shake. I take 2 of those with my nitro greens because it's 200 micrograms a pill of selenium, the selenomethionine. This is the one Ulrich talks about, isn't it? That's the version you have to take. That combination goes down to keep those codons expressing themselves properly. I haven't taken antibiotics in 30 years, correct? I ate antibiotics today for lunch at the Coney Island right around the corner. Went to the Coney Island, had that loose Coney thing with the French fries and a Verner's. No onions. I hate onions. Yeah, Charlie's mustard. If you don't put Charlie's mustard on it, it's not a Coney. That's the mother of Charlie's mustard at the Tiger game. So you have to use Charlie's mustard or, yes. I tell my kids, eating antibiotics, I'll take 2 of these. David told you have to have the germ in your gut to break down Yttrium, which is in the Vitanox, and I have to have a healthy germ. I treat so many colitis patients. Why am I pooping blood? Well, there's crap in the food. Why am I pooping? I've been to 6 hospitals. There's crap in the food. They don't know why I'm pooping blood. How many times they tell you there's E. coli? We're all eating it. He who's got the healthiest gut is going to poop it out once or twice. He who doesn't is going to poop blood, tissue, and mucus for 15 years. I tell my kids, take 2 of these 3-4 times a week. Walking by the sink, throw some germ down your gut because you're going to get a poop sandwich in a day or two, and you want to be able to poop it out once and get rid of it. It's on the news all the time. The prosymbiotic. You have to have the healthy germ to break that thing down that David talked about to cause that Witerium so you don't poop it out. Chlorophyll complex, that's a huge one. I like my fats, that's my blood builder. I take 2 of those in my little sack. I want those vitamins without an extract. I don't want D-alpha-tocopherol. I don't want retinol palmitate. I want all of it. Tremendous properties in chlorophyll. Astragalus and the IAG, it raises natural, this one raises natural killer cells. You can measure your immune, that's what fights cancer right there. I'm pretty fussy about that also. Good. Astragalus was the herb for weak immune systems. I have a weak immune system because the pediatrician tried to kill me. But it was free, so I went back again. Then he tried to kill me a second time, and it was free, so I went back, and then it was free, and I went back. And I got the allergy shots, and my arm swelled up this big, but it was a free swelling, so I went back. And then we went back again, and pretty soon I had to negotiate with him because I was a pitcher. I got to pitch tonight. Don't screw up my right arm. Screw up my leg or something. So he'd screw up my leg, and I'd try to run and pitch, and I'd go back. And as soon as the swelling got better, and he gave me another one, and my arm swelled up again. And then if I had a nosebleed, he crammed a curling iron in my nose. It was quite an adventure. So, sorry, Dad. 13, I kind of pulled the plug. Next. And there's a prebiotic. You got to understand pre and probiotics. That's an interesting topic. Good. Man, 2 minutes. Hydrogen peroxide spray. I argued with a patient today. I don't eat anything and I'm fat. And don't say nothing about fat because I'm fat. And you're going to say something. She's been a patient for 25 years. I can handle Dawn. She's been a patient forever. And she said, I do everything right. I said, no, you don't. Yes, I do. I don't eat anything and look how fat I am. I said, what'd you brush your teeth with today? She said, Sensodyne. I said, well, that shuts off your thyroid. I said, it's full of fluoride, shuts off your thyroid. And you never said, I said, I talk about this all the time. This is for you, Dawn. This is why I spray my teeth with my H2O2, use my little citrucetal dental gel. Now this is I have a special patient today. There is actually, the girls did this. I would have slipped out of here and not said anything. This is actually my 30th. I started today 30 years ago. Outside, that's enough. Outside, one of my patients has a little company. There's 300 cupcakes outside that the girls got. And this is something, I think her card's out there, Mary Ann. You know, somebody said, tell an antidote from your 30 years. So I said something that one of the girls said, Berkey said, you should tell that story. Well, I started in the good old days of Jimmy Carter. I was paying 21% on my interest for my business loan. 21%. Good old Jimmy Carter days. So the economy was a mess. That's why I've worked hard, because I started in a crummy time, kind of like now. If I went into a second crummy time when the government ruined the economy again, I did not want to be like I was that time. So I was struggling to pay my interest on this. I got a 9-month interest-only loan. I was supposed to pay principal if I ever started to make a living. You know what? It was $30,000. You know what the interest is at 21%? It was crushing. So it came, the interest is due. I can't pay the principal. I can't pay the interest, let alone the principal. So they're sending me letters. My dad puts up a lot, our extra lot at our house for collateral. You're missing your payments. And we're going to come after the lot. So, and it said at the bottom, CC rate 10. So I took off from the office and went and stole it out of my father's mailbox. So he wouldn't get the letter. So I'm struggling to find, I started actually lecturing a long time ago because I could see I am sinking in my hometown. I grew up in Livonia. So I got another letter. We're gonna come after your loan. So I left the office and went and stole out of my father's mailbox again. So they kept sending me letters and I kept stealing it out of the mailbox. So one day he gets home from a hard day at Ford. I think he was at Ace Hardware and one of those clubs on Michigan Avenue. And my dad gets the mail and it says, we're foreclosing on your property tomorrow. So my dad blew an absolute cork, called NBD in New York. All the years that I've done business with your bank, you decide to foreclose on my property without sending me any notice. So we had a big meeting. He threw a fit. We got an extension for another 6 or 8 months. And it's funny, the guy that extended it, I'm going to say his name is Larry Chrisman, and he'll see this in the waiting room. He became a patient years later. He had an incredible story, kind of saved his life, and things changed, so how this big circle goes around. But today, it was quite a struggle at 23 to start and practice in those good old financially drained times. So by hook or by crook, I survived 30 years. I'll be back at my Christmas lecture. This is my little cocktail. I want to thank all of you people for your support, and I will hopefully see you at Christmas.
Listen now to the voice of the world's leading vaccine expert, Dr. Maurice Hilleman, chief of the Merck Pharmaceutical Company's vaccine division, relay this problem he was having with imported monkeys. He best explains the origin of AIDS, but what you are about to hear was cut from any public disclosures.
And I think that vaccines have to be considered the bargain basement technology for the 20th century.
50 years ago, when Morris Hilleman was a high school student in Miles City, Montana, he hoped he might qualify as a management trainee for the local J.C. Penney store. Instead, he went on to pioneer more breakthroughs in vaccine research and development than anyone in the history of American medicine. Among the discoveries he made at Merck are vaccines for mumps, rubella, and measles.
Tell me how you found SV40 in the polio vaccine.
Well, that was a Merck thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I came to Merck, and I was going to develop vaccines. And we had wild viruses in those days. Remember the wild monkey kidney viruses and so forth? And I finally, after 6 months, gave up. I said that you cannot develop vaccines with these damn monkeys. We're finished. And if I can't do something about it, I'm going to quit. I'm not going to try it. So I went down to see Bill Mann at the zoo in Washington, D.C. And I told Bill Mann, I said, look, I got a problem. I don't know what the hell to do. Bill Mann is a very bright guy. I said, these lousy monkeys are picking it up while being stored in the airports in transit at these loading, offloading, loading. He said, very simple. He said, you go ahead, get your monkeys out of West Africa, get the African green, bring them into Madrid, unload them there. There are no other traffic through there for animals. Fly them into Philadelphia, pick them up. Or fly them into New York and pick them up right off the airplane. So I brought African greens in. I didn't know we were importing AIDS virus at the time.
And it was you who introduced AIDS virus to the country. It was you who introduced AIDS virus to the country. It was you who introduced AIDS virus to the country.
Became
real story.
Became
real story.
Became
real story.
Mert will do te wel bewijzen. Mert will do te wel bewijzen. Mert will do te wel bewijzen.
So what he did, he brought in, we brought in those monkeys. Now we had those. And this was the solution. Because those monkeys didn't have the wild viruses. But we had all of these...
Why didn't the greens have the wild viruses since they came from Africa?
Because they weren't, they weren't being infected in these group holding things with all the other 40 different viruses.
But they had the ones they brought from the jungle, though.
Yeah, they had those, but there were relatively few. What you do is you have a gang housing, you're going to have an epidemic transmission of infection in a confined space.
Oh, is that the problem?
So, anyway, the greens came in. Now we had these, and then we're taking our seed stocks to clean them up, and God, now I'm discovering new viruses. So I said, Judas Priest. Well, I got an invitation from the Sister Kinney Foundation, which was the opposing foundation, and that was the live virus.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they had jumped on Sabin's bandwagon. And they had asked me to come down and give a talk at the Sister Kinney Foundation meeting. And I said, it was an international meeting. I said, God, what am I going to talk about? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about the detection of non-detectable viruses as a topic.
There were those who didn't want a live virus vaccine. They concentrated. The National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis concentrated all its efforts on getting more and more people to use the killed virus vaccine, while they were supporting me for research on the live virus vaccine.
So now I got to have something, that's going to attract attention. So I thought, gee, that damn SV40, that vacuolating agent that we have, I'm going to just pick that particular one. That virus has got to be in vaccines, and it's got to be in Sabin's vaccine, so I quickly tested it. Sure enough, it was in there. And
I'll be damned.
so now, so I go ahead and...
So you just took stocks of Sabin's vaccine off the shelf here at Merck?
Yeah, well, that had not been made at Merck. It was made at Merck.
You were making it for Sabin at this point?
Yeah, it was made before I came.
Yeah, but at this point, Sabin is still just doing these massive field trials. Okay.
In Russia and so forth. So I go down, I talked about the detection of non-detectable virus. Now, I told Albert...
But at this point, Sabin is still just doing these massive field trials. Okay.
In Russia and so forth. So I go down, I talked about the detection of non-detectable virus. Now, I told Albert, I said, listen, Albert, I said, you and I are good friends. But I said, I'm going to go down there and you're going to get upset. I'm going to talk about a virus that's in your vaccine. Now, you're going to get rid of the virus. Don't worry about it. You're going to get rid of it. But, so of course, Albert was very upset with me. And
What did he say?
Well, he said basically that this is just another obfuscation that is going to upset vaccines. And I said, well, you're absolutely right. But I said, we have a new era here. We have a new era of a detection. And the important thing is to get rid of these viruses.
Why would he call it an obfuscation if it was a virus that was contaminating the vaccine?
Because, there are 40 different viruses in these vaccines anyway that we were inactivating. And...
but you weren't inactivating his, though.
That's correct. No, that's right. But yellow fever vaccine had leukemia virus in it, and, this is in the days of very crude science. So anyway, I went down and talked to him, and I said, well, why are you concerned about it? I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, I have a feeling in my bones that this virus is different. I don't know why to tell you this, but I've been around biology a long time. I just think this virus may have some long-term effects. And he said, what? I said, cancer.
I love it. I love it. Go ahead.
No. I said, Albert, you probably think I'm nuts, but I just have that feeling. Well, in the meantime, we had taken this virus and put it into hamsters. So we had this meeting, and that was sort of the topic of the day, and the jokes that were going around was, gee, we would win the Olympics because the Russians would all be loaded down with tumors. This is where the vaccine was being tested. This was
Yeah, right.
humorous.
Right.
So, and it really destroyed the meeting. You know, it was a big international.
Yeah, right.
meeting, so it was sort of a topic. No. Anyway.
Was this the Cancer Society meeting in New York? Cancer
No, this
Society?
was the Sister Kennedy.
Oh, the Sister Kennedy. Right.
And Del Becco got up and said that he foresaw problems with these kinds of agents.
Why didn't this get out in the press?
Well, I guess it did. I don't remember. We had no press release on it, obviously. You don't go out. This is a scientific affair within the scientific community. This is a scientific affair within the scientific community.
An historic victory over a dread disease is dramatically unfolded at the University of Michigan. Here, scientists usher in a new medical age with the monumental reports that prove the Salk vaccine against crippling polio to be a sensational success. It's a day of triumph for 40-year-old Dr. Jonas E. Salk, developer of the vaccine. He arrives with Basil O'Connor, head of the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, which financed the tests. Hundreds of reporters and scientists from all over the nation gather for the momentous announcement.
It was too much of a show. There was too much Hollywood. There was too much exaggeration. And the impression in 1957 that was, in 1954, that was given was that the problem had been solved, that polio had been conquered.
But anyway, we knew it was in our seed stock for making the vaccine. That virus, you see, it's 1 in 10,000 particles is not inactivated by formaldehyde. It was good science at the time because that was what you did. You didn't worry about these wild viruses.
So you discovered it wasn't being inactivated in the Salk vaccine?
Correct. So then, the next thing you know is 3-4 weeks after that, I found that there were tumors popping out in these hamsters.
Despite AIDS and leukemia suddenly becoming pandemic from wild viruses, Hilleman said this was good science at that time.